Hi, I'm Lars. I'm an only child of boomers who did not.
So someone sent me this in my inbox and asked me to make comments on it. And the general gist of the video I'm stitching is that this person's elderly parents do not have the financial means to continue to live independently. So they're going to be moving with her and her, I believe she's a spouse, and they have an issue with the relationship she has with her spouse. So you can go back and watch it for, the full details. I guess there's a lot of things that I could say about it. I spend a lot of time, you've heard me, if you follow me here, working in the VA hospital system. So I worked with a lot of older folks. And one thing I guess I've come to understand from that situation, being in those circumstances, is that everyone is just not meant to be a caretaker. Some people do not have like the psychological capability of supporting someone else. They don't, maybe physically they're not able, financially. Like there's so many realms of being a caretaker, and that role is not meant for everybody. So I think the first thing I would say is to really be honest with yourself and asking that question, do you have the capabilities of, being a caretaker for whatever, caretaking is a whole spectrum, right? There's people who need total care, who can't, bathe themselves, feed themselves, change their own clothes, etc. To, maybe parents who just need help, maybe managing their finances or getting to appointments, things like that. So being a caretaker and what that's going to require, including thinking long term, you have to just really be honest with yourself, and then also with your parents. My mom is getting to her late 60s and needing more kind of help and assistance with things like physically, and I'm actually in the process of moving her, from where she lives in that state to here where I live in this state, just for that reason, so we can be more helpful. Now, my mom is a very independent person, wants to be independent. We always joke because she always says she'd rather go to a nursing home than live with me because she thinks she'll have more freedom there. She thinks if she lives with me, like I'll be trying to manage her life and business, and she wants more freedom. So which is probably true. She'll stay with me. I'll be like, no, mom, you're gonna be following this diet. You're gonna be doing this. So she probably has some truthfulness to that. But if you're not a person who really has whatever that capability is of caretaking that's needed, whether it's financially, emotionally, physically, maybe you have limitations, how you're going to help someone else. I think just being honest and communicating that with your parent, as painful as it might be, because when people take their parents into their home and they're not able to really meet their needs, it really just causes like chaos to their life and confusion, but also it ultimately ends up with the person not getting their needs met appropriately. Sometimes there can be safety issues. My current job now, I work for an insurance company. I review a lot of cases of, people in the hospital, and a lot of those are older people. And, so many of their children are like well meaning and want to take them into their home, but in one way or another, they don't have the capacity or the skills necessary to be a caretaker. So to me, while some people may feel like they have some kind of like something that how they like they owe their parents caretaking, if that's not something that you're capable of doing for whatever reason, then I think you just have to be honest, because ultimately you want your parents being in the place where they can actually have their needs met. Now, to the part about having someone in your home who doesn't agree with the way you live. Now, okay, on that part, it's like if this is my house and this is where I pay the bills, then you're gonna have to get with my program in terms of how I'm living. So if I'm vegan, then you we got to be eating some vegan food unless you getting your own food. If me and my spouse like to go out and do whatever, then you're gonna have to get with my program. That's just kind of how I feel about that. So I think you should always be cautious doing anything that's going to disrupt your household, because ultimately, right, your parents, if things progress how they typically would, they're going to pass on and you're going to be left with your spouse. Just like people who center their children and don't really give any time and attention to their relationship. Well, the goal of children, eventually they're going to grow up and, if they're capable, they're going to go out and live independently and hopefully have their own life, and your role will change in their life. They'll have to prioritize other things. So, prioritizing your, primary relationships to me is important. And primary relationships don't always have to be romantic necessarily, but the people who support and feed you want to be sure that you have the time and space to be sure that you can just take care of that. So I guess that's what I would say about taking people like into your house who may not agree with some way you're living. My opinion is that if they're coming, they're going to be in agreement that they're going to try to be in my household and not disrupt the household, right? Because my household is, you're coming here because we have the functional household, right? We have the stable household. So we don't need that to be disrupted. We don't need our income to be disrupted. We don't need our peace to be disrupted. So I guess that's my thoughts about that. But for the people who are saying, you don't owe them anything, why would you take them in, I think it's just for each person, their individual choice about whether or not they want to take care of their elderly parents. Some people do it out of obligation. Some people do it because they really love their parents and they want to help. Some people are doing it because maybe they are threatened they're gonna get put out the will if they don't. People have to make their own decision about if they're doing it. What I'm saying is that I think from the jump, recognizing whether or not caretaker is a role that's even appropriate for you, to me, is really the first step. And if the answer to that is no, then working with your parents to come up with another viable solution. If it sounds like in this video the parents have resources, so they may not be eligible for some like income-based resources. In that case, you have to get educated. What does Medicaid spend down mean? Get how to get rid of assets such as you can be eligible for things. I mean, unfortunately, that's part of the work of being a caretaker. If you recognize that's you're not gonna be able to meet all the needs, is becoming a person who can kind of navigate the system to help them get their needs met in a different way.